Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us on this special panel discussion, which has been organized by Vitasta Publishing and, of course, Renuji. I think with Women's Day ahead, it's very important to focus on certain issues. And I think violence against women is one such issue that we have been, hearing a lot about. But how much have we really done to change what's happening in society? I think that's a very key question. I'd like to first introduce our panelists at this discussion. Ms. Rekha Chowdhary, who's the former professor of political science, University of Jammu. Welcome, ma'am. Dr. Vikram Singh, former DGP Police UP, who's now the Chancellor, Noida International University. Welcome, sir. Dr. Sanjeev Chopra, former bureaucrat and founder, Valley of Words Literature Festival. Welcome, sir. And Justice Poonam Bamba, unfortunately, has not been able to join us on the session as she has work. I think her views, of course, would have been invaluable, but it's great to have all of you here. And I'd like to start off this session with Dr. Sanjeev Chopra. So what do you think, about the rising violence against women? I don't know if we can call it rising or if it's existed, and we're getting to know more about it thanks to social media and digital media. But what do you think is the situation in India today?
First of all, thank you, and I'm honored to be on this panel. You see, as far as the data on crime is concerned, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And as you mentioned, you see that increased reporting does not necessarily mean that the scale is going up, because the reluctance to come out is getting less, and I think it's a very good thing. I mean, as society as such, the laws as such, we have to be. And one thing I want to make out very clearly, that it's a fundamental right. It's enshrined in the Constitution. The right to live with dignity, the right to live as an individual with dignity, whether you're a man, a woman, or a transgender. That is enshrined in the Constitution. So when we are talking, it's not a matter of grace, it's not a matter of charity, it's not a matter of chivalry to say that we must have laws to protect women, or that we should create safe spaces. It is a fundamental right. And for a long time, we did not take up this right because of patriarchy, because patriarchy has been so deeply entrenched in all of us, at least in my generation, as I was growing, and I'm talking about 5 decades ago. I mean, looking at life very, very differently. Today, fortunately, thanks to empowerment, thanks to my own daughter, who's given me many lessons on feminism and so many things. Thanks to the number of officer trainees that I've had, bright young women, my colleagues, I've learned much. I've learned a lot, and I think it's very important that we discuss. It's very important that we come out with all these things. I personally would feel that it is increased reporting. But more than that, there's also another thing that's happening. You see, today, what was considered acceptable about 20, 30 years ago, I mean, a woman would say, just let it pass. Or, even as parents, we'd say, chalo, theek hai, let it be. Today, we're not letting that pass. And I think it's very important. It's very, very important that we say a no is a no, a stop is a stop, and a full stop is a full stop. And let me also mention, you see that the violence against women starts even before birth. So from feticide to everything. So all that has to be part of our thinking. And I think it's very important. I'd like to compliment all of you, especially you and Renu and Vitasta, for having brought this very important subject up. It's a right. It's a matter of right that we must all live with equal dignity.
Rekha ji, what do you think? A no is a no, but how much, is that really being taken seriously in society? Ma'am, you're on mute.
Sorry for that. Thank you very much, Renuji, and for Lataji for inviting me for this important discussion. I agree with Chopra Sahab, it's not only a question of dignity as enshrined in the Constitution, it's a question of being the citizen. As a student of political science, I see that whatever is given to women as citizens of India is not actually available to them because of the social cultural practices, because of patriarchy. And women, at least, is one such minority in India which still has not attained the status of being a citizen. Means a citizen would mean like not only one kind of rights, means anything which is available under the constitution. Citizenship by its very definition means a right bearing citizen, and not only right bearing, that's rights actually flow to the person. The whatever is happening, I would see that this is not, it's, since we're talking about patriarchy, I just like to focus on few things. Why do women accept? Because as already Mr. Chopra has said, there was traditionally acceptance about it. I do not think that acceptance about women being subordinate, women being lesser human being, women being the person as compared to men, I do not think that idea has become less important, because patriarchy reproduces itself, patriarchy modernizes itself. And when patriarchy modernizes itself, we can see the example, as mentioned earlier, that the violence against women before the birth of women, the feticide which is done, that is a violence against women. So that is just this is one big example as to how patriarchy is. Women are allowed to be educated, women are allowed to work outside the home, they are allowed to be independent, but women are still seen as liabilities. They're still not seen as assets like the sons are. There's still preference for male child over the female. And means I have been thinking, why do women accept it? Means why don't women resist this kind of thing, this kind of behavior from the increasing graph that talked about her note which I got, that has been crimes in domestic sphere when the partner is killing another partner. So why this is happening? Why do women accept? Because this is something which is very, very systematic, and this is just the end product. This is just one particular incident, because behind this incident there is systematic things which are going levels, and we do not even take notice of, in the sense like women are so psychologically, economically, and socially weakened. It's a question of power. There is a power gap between men and women. Men are powerful, men do dominate, when men do control, they control resources, they control women, they see women as a body, they see women as a property. So men are dominating and women are powerless. We can find exceptional women who are holding important positions, who are holding economic assets, but at the same time, when we look at the larger picture, women as a group are powerless. And there is an acceptance about this kind of gender relationship in which power is there. There's an entitlement with men, and women are supposed to be under certain structures of control, structures of surveillance, structure of means in the end, women develop this sense of dependence, because why do they accept the abuse? Because they cannot come out of the house, and the parental family may not accept the women may not have means to live on her own. But these are not the only reasons. The reason is that women is so psychologically dependent on the there is life for women without the family. There's no life for women without man. It becomes very hard to difficult in the society without a man. So you need to have man. You need to, and I think as compared to the fear of violence, there is a greater fear of losing the man and living on her own. And so the cycle goes on, and the women has to accept that. So I think that is the basic problem, and we can see it in so many forms. that women, there is an intellectual gap so far as women are concerned. There is a psychological gap that women are not allowed to develop a strong personality. And in the end, women are accepting the abuse. And since this is an acceptance, and the acceptance not only by the women, entitlement by the man, entitlement of the man, and the acceptance by the society as a whole, that is what which increases. And I agree that I do not think the scale of violence has increased. It was always there. It has become only more visible in the present period, which can be seen as a positive sign, but at the same time it's very unfortunate.
Right. Dr. Vikram Singh, I'd like to bring you in. See, Rekha ji correctly mentioned about domestic violence, because the number of cases we are seeing about women in relationships, it can be a boyfriend, girlfriend, it could be a couple who's married, a couple who are engaged, and so on and so forth. What we have seen is that there suddenly, in the media, we see more cases of violence against women in relationships. What do you think, is the underlying cause for this? And is there something that can be done? Do we need more laws? What is your take on this entire scenario?
Namaskar, Lataji and esteemed panelists. I would like to narrate two incidents which would be a fair window to what is happening in society today. A gangster in Meerut demanded an extortion of around 5 crores. When the payment was refused, he barged into the house of the businessman, where 3 generations were watching a television program together. 3 generations: the grandmother, the middle, and the daughters. This gangster picked up the oldest woman and raped her publicly in front of the entire family. The purpose was not just basic crime or hedonism or lust. It was there to give a message, that this is what patriarchy, this is what the male criminals can do to you. Incident number 2, I went to a channel, a very illustrious and a national, international channel. There was a group of almost 100 women of all highly educated, qualified, and those who were around 12 years or maybe more in 2013 when the unfortunate Nirbhaya tragedy happened. The anchor asked, how do you feel now vis-a-vis 2013? As safe, less safe, or more safe? Guess the answer, esteemed panelists. Without exception, each and everyone said, we are feeling less safe today in spite of the 13th Criminal Law Amendment Act, in spite of the Domestic Violence Act, in spite of the POCSO and all the acts. So the conclusion, it is better to have a small number of laws that are faithfully and strongly implemented than to have a large number of laws that are loosely implemented. The cult of masculinity that has pervaded the police department, that the police department functions more like a boys' club than as a professional guardians. We have very gratifying news that every police station in the country will now have a women help desk. I would have been very satisfied if they had a help desk in their hearts only. There were more numbers of lady police officers. There were more lady forensic experts, lady prosecutors, lady judges, so that in-camera proceedings could be held. We continue 2010. We have traveled afar, but we have not arrived anywhere. To your question that why the masculinity, the police behaving like a boys' club, and within the domestic violence, you have heard the 2 horrific incidents that happened. The parents were siding with the perpetrators and the murderers who did something as ghastly as to reduce their partners and put them in the deep freeze and the refrigerators. Normally, as Mr. Chopra said 50 years ago, perhaps, and talking of my generation, I'm perhaps the oldest in the panel, my parents, short of shooting me down at the crossing, would have, I really don't know. But in this case, tragically, the parents were supporting the accused. And then the fact that too much of detective novels, too much of internet, too much of web series, too much hedonism and violence, perhaps one thinks that he can get away with murder, and they almost got away with murder. It's only a matter of time. Now, after the 13th Criminal Law Amendment Act, yes, there has been an increase in the number of fires, which is attributed to the fact that the ladies are more forthcoming and feel free to lodge a police complaint. But why the larger number of acquittals? Have we not been able to draw lessons from the past? The larger number of acquittals also indicate that we have become passive and nothing shocks and surprises us any longer. And number of appeals to the higher court to address the lacuna that may have happened in the lower court, hardly any. Any punishment to the prosecutors and the investigators, none. We had a section, my last point would be 166A of the Indian Penal Code introduced in the 13th Criminal Law Amendment Act against all guilty policemen, all officers who do not react and act as per the requirements of law, not lodging an FIR, being wooden-headed, not doing investigation properly, male police officers attending with female police officers. I would love to hear from my panelists if they have heard of a single case of 166A IPC being registered against any police officer in the country. Thank you very much.
Dr. Chopra, would you like to respond to him?
No, I mean, we are on the same page. I think the points that Dr. Vikram Singh has made are absolutely logical. They are to the point, they're very precise. I could only, I mean, I'm with him on this, but I think we should now change the focus to what can possibly be done. And I think what needs to be done is that, right from school, we need to, especially from 9 to the ages of 14, when a lot of hormonal changes take place in both the boy's body and the girl's body, I think sex education should be made a very important and a very significant part of the school curriculum. We're just hiding away. We're just shying away from discussing, menstruation or periods or growing up, and if we do not have sex education in schools, if we do not have writings on sex education and growing up for young adults, especially for young adults, you're going to have this sort of a scenario where boys would look at girls only as objects and they would try to, because unless boys and girls grow up together, they would not be able to understand and appreciate each other. So I think compulsory sex education and compulsory co-education would perhaps be the foundations at which we can get a better generation, a generation which is more attuned to each other. What we do in the Value of Words is that we've been trying to encourage books on sex education and on child rights and and the other day I went to a school. I was very pleasantly surprised to find a school, and in fact I'll mention it, the Mahanandmay school in Dehradun. I mean, they did a play, 9 to 14-year-olds talking about transgenders, talking about lesbians, talking about gays, and talking about these things. So I think it's high time that schools and families brought this out of the closet, because unless we as parents, as educators, as people who publish books, as people who bring things into the public domain, it will not happen. It cannot happen overnight, right? So it's a process. When I was in school, I think in class 6, the biology teacher just told us to leave our biology textbooks in the school. And when we came back the next day, she toned out the reproductive system and she toned out the urinary system. Now, just by tearing out 6 pages from your copies and books, I think it left all the boys and the girls in the class more confused, more curious, and I think that's crazy. I mean, why can't we just accept that this is hormonal changes are very, very normal? They have to be there, and the more boys and girls would understand each other's sexuality, the better it would be for them. And that would include transgenders, because that is the age when people get a lot of vague ideas about transgenders. The jokes about transgenders, calling somebody hijra and all that stuff. So I think it is from that age, 9 to 14, I think is the time when families and schools will have to play a very, very important role. Because the law will always follow, but the law can only take, steps after things have happened. Other things that need to be done is safe space. I mean, safe space, whether it's the metro or the rail or the train or the public road or the Ola or the Uber. These things may be symbolic, but even the little note which says that this cab respects women, more Ola drivers among girls, all these things will go a long way. So I'm not a pessimist. I'm not being pessimistic. I think there is a very bright future, and because I find that the girls the young officers that I interact with, girls are very bright, and they're very forthcoming, they're willing to discuss all these things. So I think I would. I mean, of course, there are very bad situations, but I think we would be able to. We will be able to cross this hump. I mean, this discussion today, for example, it never happened in my time. I mean, it didn't happen, 10 years ago. And I'm glad that Renu brought out this point, and we're discussing this in a manner which should hopefully enlighten all of us.
Right. Rekha ji, to all the panelists, in fact, I just want to point out an interesting thing, an initiative by the government here in Tamil Nadu. What they've done is in the corporation schools, that is the government-run schools, they've tried to create a, sort of sex education kind of class, but they're doing it in different ways, in terms of, workshops and through games, and, they're teaching them about gender equality and so on and so forth. Rekha ji, do you think, because kids spend most of their time in schools versus spending time with their parents, especially during the foundation years, how much should schools contribute to this aspect?
You're on mute.
Yeah, unmute.
Yeah. Educational institutions are the best spaces because I could see, I have always defined university where I've been teaching as a very, very emancipatory space for women. And I could see that means how the boys and girls who have been still now very, very segregated and had not have any interaction with each other. And means the first day in the university class, and I will see that all girls sitting together in the front row, all boys sitting in the back row, and just give them 15 days, and in 15 days they will get used to each other. And by the end of the 2 years, when they finish being with each other, so their whole perceptions would change about each other. So that interaction is very, very essential. And I said, when I talk about university is like when they are already, let's say they have developed into clear-cut personalities. But certainly if it starts, because I could see it at that point of time, it's 2 years of being there, confidence in them, that how they see that they could face the world, they could live on their own. And this was a space which was out of world space, because this was like, means in day-to-day life, they won't be able to meet boys, they won't be able to talk in a very confident manner, they won't be able to take decisions or lead or be the leader in a team, or means this was really emancipatory space. And men, the boys, were learning how to be with girls, what are the expectations of the girl, and many of the stereotypes, but both the girls as well as the boys, they were breaking down. So if it starts at the school level, I think from the very, very nursery level, where the process of socialization starts, where the stereotype starts building up, I think if it starts over there, it will certainly help them. And because I agree that laws are very, very important, they are needed. Safe spaces are also needed, but more important is because the problem is very social, cultural, and psychological. Then we have to bring the change at the cultural level, and if we have to bring the change at the social cultural level, and this is a very important space. The school is a very important space where the such culture can change, where we can, for example, the boys have never been told. I never, when I talk about gender, I never feel that this is a problem mainly because created by men, because men are themselves the product of the socialization, that masculinity itself is a construct which is constructed by the structure of patriarchy. So men are as much at loss as the women are. Only thing, men are more privileged, they are more entitled, they get the benefits, and women are powerless. So even teaching men what is expected of them from the society, how should they view women, how a woman is like an equal person, the very concept of equality, the gender equality, it will come into their mind. The small acts like they're not like division of roles. There is nothing like something which is, there is a difference in gender and sex. Like most of the roles that we see and that we can think to be a roles of women, that only they have to cook, only they have to do certain things, means they will understand that these are all constructed, and whatever is constructed that can be deconstructed. So to deconstruct those stereotypes, those gendered structures, I think school very important space. There is need to do much more, but this much is minimum which is required.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's a very valid point, ma'am. Dr. Singh, do you think, given that India is such a strong patriarchal society, boys also need to be taught certain things? It's not enough, that we empower women, but boys need to learn how to respect women and what are the do's and don'ts, because they, like ma'am said, like Dr. Chopra said, and like you also said, there is, men are more privileged in our society, right? And it's automatically given to them. They take it as their right, their haq. It's not that, so they don't really see the problem, right? What do you think we need to teach young boys of today, given that these crimes are so common, and we're not even blinking twice about seeing it in the newspaper every day?
God bless you for the words of profound wisdom, ma'am. And your sentiment was expressed by the Honorable Prime Minister from the Red Fort, maybe about 4 years ago, that we need to mentor and guide our boys to be gentlemen. We, in fact, you will forgive me, train them to become downright rascals. And I am working here in the NCR areas where there are Kha panchayats, where the cult of masculinity, as we have discussed, that has a premium. And they quote certain things about Akbar Allahabadi, who wrote something maybe about 100 years ago. हम उन किताबों को समझते हैं काबिले ज़ब्ती जिनको पढ़ के औलाद समझते हैं माँ बाप को खपती. To translate for most of the panelists, it will go like this. Akbar Allahabadi was a noted Urdu poet, and he said, I would strongly recommend that the books that train our boys or give them the impression that the parents are senile, those books should be proscribed. Now, to teach our boys nothing, that the king can do no wrong. Similarly, the boys can do no wrong. This axiom translated in the Indian context would read something like this. And yes, checking a boy is something that is absolutely unheard of even today. Look, that he's a boy. Look, even 50 years ago, we were told, yes, Sharifo, this is the house where gentlemen reside. Take pains to return home before 6 p.m. And the day you are accused of eve teasing or behaving in an irresponsible or ungentle manner, you will be thrown out of the house, no questions asked, and there will be a small advertisement in the papers that Vikram Singh, son of Markandeya Singh, has been in some obnoxious activity and he is thrown out of the family, and this will be out in all the papers. So you know what is good for you. And this was told by my mother when I was 17. I really don't know. But again, they said that I was one among the 7 brothers and sisters. Now there are either 1 or 2. So everybody is as sacred as a Kohinoor jewel in the family. They're like family jewelry. Whatever it is better to have an honorable boy than to have a dishonorable boy in the family. You are very right that this has to come in the beginning itself, what you should do and what you should not do. We do tell them, parrot like Satyam, Vada, Dharmam, Chara, Matra Devo Bhav, Pitra Devo Bhav. But that is again learning like a parrot mechanically, not understanding how to respect the other sex. My last point would be, I'm a chancellor of a private university in the NCR area. Surprisingly, we have more than 50% girl students. The faculty is more than 50% ladies. The vice chancellor is a lady. And very soon, if this continues, because we do not favor it, my university will be an all-women university, because the boys cannot compete with the women academics institute of excellence. Therefore, I would say the boys, when they try to translate their infirmity in academics and elsewhere, it takes the form of eve teasing, talking, and I dare say acid attacks also. Therefore, a training and reinforcing these norms of what is right and what is not right has to be done from not infancy, in school, in college, or wherever. We also have, my last point, I'm so sorry, we have a policy of zero touch. No male shall not will touch any female ever. If someone has touches, even if it is holy or anything, take pains to ensure that you don't touch a lady. If you do, well, the only punishment, the beginning of the first stage is dismissal from service, and then we'll ask questions later. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'd like a last word from our 3 esteemed panelists. In one line, can you sum up what we need to do going forward?
Yes, what we need to do going forward is many conversations at all age groups. One of the mottos of Value of Words is an intergenerational dialogue, because what is happening is that we all talk to our own age groups. We do not talk to people. For instance, I am in my 60s. Dr. Singh, who's maybe more senior to me. So Rekha ji is also in her 60s. All of us talk in our own age groups. I think it's very important that we talk across ages and we